The Farrelly Brothers have brought us some of the best comedies of the 90s. There's Something About Mary, Kingpin, Dumb and Dumber, and then things got a little bit more mixed. Movies like Fever Pitch, Hall Pass, Dumb and Dumber 2. So the two struck out on their own, and Peter Farrelly has a couple of Oscars now to his name for his work on Green Book, but now is returning to his R-rated comedy roots. Let's talk about Ricky Stanicky. Hey guys, Dan here. This is Dan Reviews It. Welcome to my spoiler-free review for the new Amazon Prime film, Ricky Stanicky. This is an R-rated comedy starring John Cena and Zac Efron, among others. And Peter Farrelly, the director and co-writer, worked with Zac Efron recently on a pretty good movie called The Greatest Beer Run Ever. I think that's what it was called. You know, it was a decent movie, but I wouldn't call it an out-and-out comedy. So this one definitely is returning Peter Farrelly to his comedy roots. So we'll talk about all of this here in just a moment. First, though, let me welcome you into Dan Reviews It. Thank you for finding this video. We've got movie and TV reviews all over the channel. Every day, just about, I try to post something new. So there's always a lot to check out. Please consider subscribing. Click that like button, comment below, and check out my Letterboxd as well. That's in the description below. Letterboxd is a really, really cool site where you can sort of log your movies and track them and rate them and all of that and make different lists. I love a good list. So you can check out that in the description below. All right, Ricky Stanicky. So John Cena, look, we know he's funny. I mean, he was, I don't know how questionable it even is, but he was probably the funniest part about the Oscars the other week when he had the 50th anniversary of the Streaker, and, you know, him and Jimmy Kimmel kind of went back and forth on whether he wanted to do it. And John Cena, you know, look, he's game for anything. You know, he came out virtually naked with just holding the little, like, envelope, you know, where his crotch was, and it was a scream. I mean, look, not to get off on a tangent, but I think this was the funniest Oscars just in general in a long time. A lot of good bits. But I think the one everybody was talking about was the John Cena one. So we know the guy can do comedy, and they've been trying with some of these streaming R-rated comedies for a few years now. He starred in 2 different Vacation Friends movies, which I don't think are very good. I've rated them both in the C to D range. But there's no doubt that the guy is charismatic on screen. And, you know, look, unlike his wrestling cohort, The Rock, I think John Cena has a lot more range. The Rock is great in his lane. He does his, you know, his one thing very well. But I think John Cena has shown us a lot more range, and Ricky Stanicky is no exception to that. So let's talk briefly about the plot of the film. So essentially, these 3 kids in, you know, their childhood decide to pull a prank on one of their neighbors who they think does not give out candy on Halloween night. So they light a bag of dog crap, and it unfortunately ends up lighting the whole house on fire. So they tear off, you know, one of their costumes and write Ricky Stanicky in the, you know, underwear or whatever, so that if anybody finds it, they'll blame this Ricky Stanicky kid, who doesn't exist. So we flash forward now to the present day, and these 3 kids have now grown up, and they are played by Zac Efron, Andrew Santino, and Jermaine Fowler. And they are still using Ricky Stanicky as an excuse, as, you know, I don't want to do this. I want to get out of this. Oh, you know, Ricky's cancer's back. We got to go, you know, see him and whatever. So anytime they want to do anything, they sort of blame it on this Ricky Stanicky character. But we have a chain of circumstances that their lives are sort of catching up with them. And so they realize, okay, we need to actually produce a Ricky Stanicky. So they hire this actor played by John Cena, who they met in a bar the week before. And, you know, he has this like X-rated musical review or whatever, with, you know, songs from Billy Idol and Bette Midler, but they're like X-rated versions. That's like his thing. That's his show. So they hire him, and he ends up being the most charming person in the room. He really, really researched this role, even though he is, you know, a raging alcoholic. But, oh, Ricky Stanicky's been clean for years, so he's got to sober up, you know. And so through this chain of really unbelievable circumstances. Let's just call it what it is. We have this John Cena presenting as Ricky Stanicky, and so much so that, well, I will say that I'm not going to even go into spoilers any further than that, I guess. That's sort of the basic plot. But he charms everybody, and when the movie seems like it could be maybe coming to an end, there's still 45 minutes left because there's a whole nother story arc for the Stanicky character. And not in a bad way. I'm not going to say like I was bored watching this movie, but it seemed like it was coming to a natural conclusion, and I looked down and there's like, well, there's still 45 minutes left, so what are they going to do next with this character? And then we find out how he's infiltrated their lives even further. So look, like I said, John Cena, I think, is very adept at comedy. And look, we've seen it even in Peacemaker, which is, certainly more of an action-oriented show, but it's very, very filthy and very, very funny. And that stems from the world of the Suicide Squad. And I believe we're getting a second season of that. But we've seen him obviously do a bunch of action stuff, and of course he comes from the world of wrestling. But I think comedy could be a really, really interesting niche for him going forward. And he was in one of the last probably really successful theatrical R-rated comedies, which was Blockers back in, I want to say, 2019. That's once streaming got up and running, comedies at the box office just in general sort of died a little bit. And last year we had a few make a bit of a splash, like No Hard Feelings and Joyride, but on the level that they were 20 years ago when, things like The Hangover came out, absolutely not. And I'm not sure if we'll ever see that return. I personally love going to the theater and seeing a bunch of people laugh at the same time. And I don't get that as much anymore. I did see No Hard Feelings in theaters, and it was, not a full house, but there was probably 20 other people there, and we all had a great time. This, I watched by myself on my TV. It's fine. It makes for, an okay experience. But I think there is something to that theatrical experience that we lose maybe a little bit with a comedy on streaming or on TV. So that being said, would I have found this more enjoyable in a packed house where everyone is laughing? I don't know. Maybe. I didn't necessarily dislike this movie, and I do think it's better than both of the Vacation Friends films. And I love the three main guys. Zac Efron, they've tried to put him in comedies along the way as well. He had an R-rated comedy called That Awkward Moment years and years ago. He's like, okay. I think Zac Efron is a great performer. He has clearly proven his dramatic chops recently. And he was the star of the greatest beer run ever that I talked about earlier that Peter Farrelly directed. Look, I like Zac Efron a lot. I'm not sure if the R-rated, gross out comedy is necessarily his lane. He's likable in this, but he does kind of play the straight man anyway, so I guess that's fine. But John Cena is really the reason to come see this movie. He's very, very funny. It's a completely unbelievable movie. This is not one of your R-rated comedies where it's like, okay, if this were real life, this would happen, then this would happen, then this would happen. You really have to, suspend that disbelief for a movie like this. But it did not bring as many laughs as I'd hoped. But I really, really think there is something about John Cena doing these crazy comedies that I really, really like. So for me, this is a slight positive. I will leave Ricky Stanicky with a C+, and I think it's got like a 45% or so on Rotten Tomatoes. So that makes sense. I think this is going to be really, really love it or hate it with, the comedy stylings. But you can check it out now on Amazon Prime. Thank you for watching Dan Reviews It. We'll see you next time. Bye.